Joining us now to discuss this further is John Byrnes, Strategic Director of Concerned Veterans for America, U.S. Marine Corps, and Army National Guard veteran. And we have Armen Kurdian, Foreign Policy and National Security Analyst and retired U.S. Navy Captain. So first of all, thank you both for joining us today. Now, Trump's speech is said to be a celebration of the 250th year of America's independence. So what are the key topics we can expect Trump to cover? John, I'll start with you.
Well, I think he's going to talk about what he sees as his accomplishments, a very long list of accomplishments from this year. Probably going to start with the economy, then the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the prevention of the biggest tax increase on the American taxpayer in forever, actually ever. So he's going to lead with that. I think he's going to talk about his foreign policy successes, brokering peace in a variety of conflicts around the world. Working to end the war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, holding our allies accountable, withdrawing most of our troops from Syria and Iraq, something that's long overdue. Hopefully he mentioned something about veterans and pushing for more community care, something he talked about in the past. He's going to talk about lowering inflation, lowering unemployment. He's going to talk about all the things that he's accomplished in the first year.
So, Armen, what do you expect that we're going to hear? What do you think Trump's message should be tonight?
Trump's message should be kitchen table politics, the cost of living, the things that affect everyday Americans. Certainly, he should definitely hit on some of his foreign policy successes, but I think he should also hit upon the recent rescission of the 2009 emergency environmental order, which is going to save American business over $1.3 trillion. He should definitely also talk about cost of living and jobs. I know the jobs number wasn't that great, but I think he should draw a very big distinction showing how some of the blue states, like here in California, we've lost over 180,000 jobs last year. And the same was true in the state of New York, whereas the red states were actually gaining jobs. So draw that distinction in terms of, left versus right in economic policies. A lot of those things really matter to American citizens and families, because when they go vote, they vote with their pocketbooks, they vote with food on their table, and they vote with a roof over their heads.
So, John, as you know, around 30 million Americans will be tuning in tonight. I'm wondering if, in your view, there is a topic or topics that President Trump should avoid.
Well, he's President Trump, so it doesn't matter what I think. He's going to say whatever he wants to do. It depends on the audience, really. There are obviously a lot of folks on the left who are upset about immigration. Some of his foreign policy base doesn't like exactly the way he's been doing business. But he's gonna lead with his successes as he sees them. And again, that's the economy. Hopefully he drives on some of the things that he could still do to increase economic success even more, like permitting reform and other things that will drive the energy sector into more success, which will, increase prosperity. Tariffs are going to be a little bit controversial. Obviously, that's an ongoing question, but he's not going to avoid them. He's going to directly confront them the way he always does, and he's going to let the chips fall where they may, and he's going to assume and I think, intend that his message is what drives success for his party in November. He's going to brag on the things that he thinks he's accomplished and the places that he thinks he can accomplish more in the next few months.
So, Armen, John brings up the midterms coming in November. And according to a recent Pew Research poll, more than 70% of Americans say that the economy is either poor or fair. What does Trump need to do to convince these people that his policies are working?
I think he needs to focus a lot on, say, energy prices and unleashing American energy and lower gas prices throughout the country. Although you haven't seen that here in the state of California because we've lost refineries, we've lost refining capacity, we have high taxes. He needs to talk about jobs and bringing manufacturing back to this country, the ability to make things, which is a national security issue. And that is a topic that resonates not just with regular people, but also with union folks. I think he also needs to talk about education, trying to improve education for families out there who are stuck in the public school system because they can't afford to do private school or homeschool in a lot of areas where schools are actually failing, and holding schools accountable, but at the same time showing why things like, he's been hammered on the Department of Education, trying to close it down, why the DOE really hasn't helped education in a lot of ways, has possibly hurt secondary education in a lot of our schools. So again, the things that actually affect families are what he needs to focus on and have a very positive message. And remember, this is This is being watched by not just 30 million Americans, but people all over the world. And a positive view of America is what we need to see tonight.
So, John, I have a similar question to you. Where are we at in terms of this Trump economy that was promised during his campaign? Because in that same poll, that Pew Research poll, more than 50% of Americans are saying his policy has made the economy worse. Your comments?
Well, it was a tough year in 2025. We still had the lingering after effects of the last administration. We're moving into 2026. I think, starting as people get their tax returns back and they see what the tax return looks like now with the extension of the tax cuts, that hasn't been impacted. The fact that gas prices are already starting to go down, creeping down, they continue to waver, but they're lower on average than they have been, certainly where I live. Can't speak for California, sir. I know gas prices are tough out there. But I think things are starting to happen. Certainly, as has been the case in the past, Wall Street has continued to make money. He's got to focus on those kitchen table issues. I think that if he continues to drive on it, if he continues to do the things he's been doing, keeping taxes low, investing in economic pro-growth policies around energy and reshoring production, I think he's got a real solid case going into November if he does that. And he's certainly going to make that case this evening.
So, Armen, do you think the Supreme Court's recent ruling on tariffs is going to undercut President Trump's speech? Because it has been a major economic pillar for his domestic agenda.
I think a lot of us expected a similar type of ruling. I was surprised it was as broad as it actually was. But at the same time, you've got to remember a lot of this discussion about, are we going to pay these tariffs back? We never had to pay back all of the hundreds of billions of dollars that the Biden administration threw out to student loans. So I believe that Congress is going to work to try to do that so that those tariffs aren't exactly paid back. Tariffs, the tariff issue, a lot of folks thought that it was going to be a big problem for the administration, that it was going to really slow the economy down. We didn't actually see that. It has in a lot of areas brought back manufacturing. So this is something that is going to need to be addressed, and you should address it head on because Donald Trump went out and said, look, y'all are not being fair in trade. If you're going to sell goods into this country, you need to drop your barriers in your country as well for American goods. So, we see the drawbacks of globalization, and Trump is trying to bring some of that back to the U.S., and he needs to hammer on that.
So, John, I have two questions for you. One is the tariffs. President Trump, in addition, in using it to help the domestic economy, he has also used it in foreign negotiations and used it to end wars, he says. And the second question is, how much has Trump done for veterans and the military?
Well, the first part, Trump obviously sees tariffs as a big part of his toolkit in negotiating for just about every realm, right? Whether it's the economy, international relations, security, all of these are things where he feels he has leverage with tariffs. I think you're going to continue to see President Trump use tariffs to whatever authority he and his team can find to use them as effectively as he can to get the goals he wants. This is the way he did business as a businessman, using leverage against his competitors. This is the way he's going to do business as the president, his second term, just like the first term. In terms of veterans, Concerned Veterans for America, we're for America. We believe in outcomes that serve the entire nation, all the people. We do have a particular veterans focus, and that's on veterans healthcare and veterans healthcare freedom. We saw President Trump in his first term pass two really significant bills. The biggest one for the VA was the VA Mission Act, which ensured community care would be more readily accessible. At the very end of the Trump administration, under COVID, and then especially under the Biden administration, VA bureaucrats began to roll back that freedom of veterans to go out into the community and get care of their choice. So we've been working very closely with Trump's VA. We're working with Congress. We think that there's a bill that we could pass called the Veterans Access Act that we could help pass, and that would extend that. President Trump certainly has been a friend to veterans who believe in community care and choice, and who believe that small government, big market solutions are the way to take care of problems, including veterans health care. So hopefully he'll brag on that a little bit tonight, and he'll offer some support for the Veterans Access Act.
Okay, Armen, same to you. What has President Trump done for veterans?
I'm going to hammer on what John was talking about in terms of community care. I've had to deal with that myself, where you have to wait 5 or 6 months for a procedure. And then if you go into community care, you have to get rid of your current appointment that's scheduled on the chance that maybe you can make it sooner, but you're basically gambling that you're going to actually be seen later. So a lot of that bureaucratic red tape still needs to be cut. A lot of the wait times need to be reduced, but we definitely need to focus on process and reform. We don't need to throw more money at the problem. The VA has plenty of money if it just gets out of its own way. If we get a lot of the statutory regulations and rules that are in the way that slow things down, I think we'll see things move a lot faster and improve VA care in that sense. Looking at veteran suicide as well, I'd like to see use of more artificial intelligence, looking at veterans who may have committed suicide in the past, what records they had, what were the common factors and denominators. So perhaps looking forward, you can see who might actually be at greater risk and save lives in that sense. The VA is there to take care of our veterans and save their lives as they go forward. Focusing on that is a measurable outcome that the president can demonstrate. And if he can do that, I think that would really endear him with the military community.
Okay, so one last thing I want to bring up here, John. The families of 2 Iowa National Guard soldiers killed in Syria last December will attend the address. How important do you think it is, to recognize their service and their sacrifice?
Well, it's always important to recognize the service and sacrifice of not only our warriors, but their families who, I've always said I did the easy stuff. My wife did the hard stuff, staying home and running the household by herself, right? It's the military family members who carry the burden. We always honor that. It's a great tradition in American history going back to before we were the United States of America, when we were a collection of colonies. We honored those who were fighting for us. We continue to do that. I think one of the greatest things President Trump has done to honor folks like that and folks like my comrades who fell in Iraq and Afghanistan is to get us out of those messes. Yes, the Afghan withdrawal was a disaster, in no small part because of terrible execution by Team Biden and the military leadership that was there in 2021. But getting us out of there was the right thing to do. Getting us out of Iraq and ending the war there has been the right thing to do. Pulling troops home from Syria is the right thing to do. Hopefully that continues throughout the Middle East. We've talked a little bit about Iran. Those bases in Doha and Bahrain serve almost as nothing more than targets today. Those bases in Syria and Iraq that have been there that are slowly drawing down, those have been nothing but targets. It's time to bring those troops home. And that's, I think, the greatest thing we can do to honor the folks who served, is not put anybody else at risk unless it's in the direct core national interest of the United States of America.
Armen, final thoughts from you, the importance of recognizing those who have sacrificed and gave so much for this country.
Absolutely. It's very important. I would call on the Democrats who are planning on boycotting tonight to change their minds and show up in support of these Gold Star families and our soldiers and our troops, airmen, Marines, sailors that are out there fighting and doing their job, doing it well. Whether or not you necessarily agree with the orders that are being given, they are taking up the arms. They are wearing the uniform in order to serve their country. So at the very least, I want to hit what I said again. This is the United States on display. This is something that we can all come together on, and we should come together on and salute and respect our military. And I really hope that they do this.
Yeah, that's a great point you make, Armen, that Democrats should show up just to honor these people who have gave up so much. But pleasure to speak with you today. Great comments, Armen. John, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us on.